Chimpanzees are our closest primate cousins, but for a long time, scientists didn't really know what their whole deal was. That all changed thanks to one woman whose research changed not just how we think about apes, but how we think about ourselves. Today, I'm telling you all about Jane Goodall. Hey, I'm Miranda Cosgrove, and welcome to my STEM loft, where one of the elevator buttons is a skull and crossbones, and I really want to press it. Jane Goodall was born in 1934 in London, and when she was a little girl, she dreamed of, quote, going to Africa, living with wild animals, and writing books about them. That's a pretty good dream. I need to look into that. As a young woman, Jane couldn't afford to go to college, so she hustled as a waitress, saved her money, and traveled to Kenya at the age of 23 to visit a family friend. This 1957 trip was supposed to be a short one, but while there, she called up legendary archaeologist Leakey on the phone and asked to meet, and he said yes. Jane had independently studied African animals for years, so Leakey was impressed and offered her a job. At first, she was just a secretary, but after noticing her clear passion for animals and her keen observation skills, she got the assignment that would change her life. Leakey asked Jane to study the behavior of humanity's closest relatives, wild chimpanzees. Now, in 1957, Jane Goodall didn't know much about chimpanzees, but neither did anyone else. Wild chimpanzees had never been carefully studied. In fact, Leakey thought her lack of a degree meant that she could observe the chimps objectively without being held back by existing scientific assumptions. At first, the chimps of the reserve were shy, and there wasn't much for her to observe. I mean, if someone you don't know starts showing up and writing down everything you're doing, it's natural to nope out of there. Even worse, once they stopped being scared, they started treating her as a predator. Chimps are like 8 times stronger than humans, so it can be pretty scary if they start threatening you. But after an older male chimp she named David Graybeard allowed Jane to watch him, the rest of the troop decided she must be chill, and they let her hang around and watch how they live. One of the ways she won over David Graybeard was letting him take bananas from camp, which I always thought was a stereotype, but I guess it's true. Now that the chimps were comfortable with her, Jane could watch them in action like a neighbor, and everything humans thought they knew about chimpanzees was about to change. For example, using tools at the time was considered a human-only trait, like it was our thing, and only our thing. So when Jane observed David Graybeard carefully stripping the leaves off a twig to fish for termites in a mound, she knew that she'd made a huge breakthrough. Weeks later, she observed chimps consuming meat and even hunting and eating smaller monkeys. Like humans, they were omnivores. Encouraged by Dr. Leakey, she applied for a doctoral degree at Cambridge and became one of the only people ever to be given a waiver to study for a PhD without an undergraduate degree. Over the next few decades, she continued to study chimpanzees, and several documentaries and magazine features made her one of the most famous scientists in the world. She observed complex social behaviors, saw how chimps have distinct personalities, witnessed them express complex emotions, and watched them mourn the deaths of their loved ones. Like us, chimpanzees were capable of great compassion, consoling each other in times of sadness or distress, and even adopting orphans. However, as time went on, it became apparent that chimp society wasn't all hugs and kindness. Jane learned that just like humans, chimps could be territorial, violent, and even deadly. She even witnessed a 4-year conflict in the 1970s that became known as the Gombe Chimpanzee War, where a large group of chimps separated into 2 factions and started fighting over disputed territory. Eventually, all the males of the smaller and weaker group were eliminated. Like, not scared away or anything. They were gone. And while Jane Goodall was undeniably a trailblazer, Dr. Leakey also asked 2 other young women to study our close ape cousins. Diane Fossey received worldwide attention for her work on mountain gorillas, while Birute Galdikas studied orangutans. Together, these 3 were called the Trimates. In the later years of her career, Jane Goodall expanded her focus from studying wild chimps to making sure they have a place to live. As a conservation activist, she fought to protect the habitat of her beloved apes in the Gombe rainforest and other critical ecosystems around the world. Over an almost 70-year career, she was awarded dozens of awards, medals, and honors, including honorary doctorates from numerous universities. Jane Goodall passed away in 2025 at the age of 91. Up until the end, she traveled hundreds of days a year, giving speeches, talking to politicians and business leaders, and trying to protect chimpanzees and their irreplaceable ecosystems. Even though she's gone, her legacy lives on, not just in the scientists that she inspired or in the discoveries she made, but also in the Jane Goodall Institute, which continues to protect chimps in Africa while mentoring and teaching children worldwide. Thanks to her, the next generation of girls who dream of growing up and changing the world now know it's possible. Hey, it's Miranda Cosgrove, your favorite host of Mission Unstoppable. I'm the only host. And if you want to watch awesome STEM videos and exclusive Mission Unstoppable clips, just make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell.